Hey, how's everybody doing out there in Facebook land here at IBGR? This is Brandon Souba, your ADHD DJ. I do not have this microphone running through my Facebook Live, so the audio probably is going to be the best quality today. But wanted to do a Facebook Live and show you what it looks like behind the scenes here at IBGR Superville Studios as we are rocking and rolling. So we're going to go live in about 30 seconds. You can stay on here. We want you to stay on here and watch us live. Otherwise, you can always jump on that app and listen to us that way. All right, well, looking forward to a great show. Boom. Hello and welcome to IBGR. You are listening to Brandon Souba, your ADHD DJ, coming to you live from Soubaville Studios today. Now, for those of you that are longtime listeners, thank you so much always for your support, but we're doing something a little different today. You have the opportunity to go to IBGR on Facebook. Just search for them unless you're already a fan of the page. And you're going to be able to see live. That's right. I'm going live here in Soubaville Studios on the IBGR Facebook page. So if you want to see what happens behind the scenes, what I do during the breaks, usually a couple jumping jacks, some exercises with my mouth just to keep the talking going. I doubt I'm actually going to do those. I do those actually before the show starts, so I'm already ready to go, but would love to have you jump on and you can throw a comment on there. I'm going to do my best to read it. It's right in front of me, but then I also have to focus on my notes because we are going to have a rockin' good show today. We're talking about one of my favorite topics, building your network. And I'm going to focus a lot on networking opportunities such as groups, events, those sort of things. Because for those of you that don't know my history, I was an education director and growth coordinator for BNI, specifically BNI Heartland. So that's Nebraska, Wyoming, South Dakota, and a little bit of Sioux City, Iowa. So I did quite a bit of traveling. And the farthest from my home was, about 9-10 hour drive. I mean, it was with an hour switch there. So I traveled quite a bit and I enjoyed that. I did. Now that my family has grown a little though, I am so happy to be in the mortgage industry and I have a lot more time home, which I can't complain. But the 6 to 7 years that I traveled and was involved with BNI, I learned so much. I made some of the best connections and that's what allows me to hopefully give you all you need to make the right decision on how you're going to network your business, how you're going to network your brand, how you're going to network fill in the blank, right? So once again, you are listening to IBGR Live. If you're not listening to us on the app, well, you need to go to check out in iOS or in your Android and get the IBGR app for Android or iOS. It's available for download. You just search IBGR Business Growth Radio on either platforms, and then you can listen to the current programming. You get on-demand podcast. My show notes are there. And unfortunately, this is another one of those weeks you're not missing much if you don't check the show notes, but go check them out. I've got a little listing there for you, a couple lists on there. And you can stay current on the IBGR news and connect with our on-air talent. So you can take IBGR wherever you go. And if you've listened to any of my shows since the app came out, it is my favorite way to listen to IBGR and get my daily, and yes, I mean daily, because we broadcast 24/7 live. Most of the time it's live, but this is a great way for you to get your IBGR fix every single day. Like I say, just play it in the background, and you're going to pick up a couple things here and there. So building your network, oh my gosh, networking is the most exciting way to build your business. I'm a people person, go figure, right? So that's where I love being around people. And these networking events, these networking groups, they're really tailored to building that visibility live. Now, there's other ways that you can build your network, and unfortunately, I don't dig too deep on those because my expertise truly falls under that live face-to-face networking, and it's what I enjoy the most. Now, if you have any great tips on networking after this show, please leave a comment on our Facebook page, on our Instagram page, wherever you kind of follow us here at IBGR, because we love to get your feedback and we love to hear what you have to say. And I may give you an additional place later in the show where you can go join a community and share your comments that way. So as we dig into the topic a little bit more, let's talk about why networks are so important. And I want to start off with a quote from Helen Keller. Ooh, if you're not familiar with Helen Keller, she had a big piece of creating sign language and Braille. She was deaf and blind, and at a young age worked with a caretaker, and she was able to start communicating with her. There's an older movie on it. It's a little cheesy, but it really shares the story of the success of Helen Keller, and she was a phenomenal woman. And her quote is, "Alone we can do so little, together we can do so much." So that quote alone should tell you why having a network is so important. If you're out there trying to grow your business by yourself, which in this specific time frame of the day, we focus on earlier stages of business dealing with people. So maybe you've never been to a networking event. Maybe you've been to a few. I hate to say this, got a bad taste in your mouth, what they're all about. And we'll talk more about that as we get into the different options on how you can network. But I want to start off, well, I guess I start off with the quote. I want to continue with a story. I've been in sales for a long time. I love sales, kind of, as I said it, going into this, I love dealing with people. And I started in two different industries. One was selling internet cable to businesses, and their whole theory was hit up a business so many times until they give you a yes. I don't like selling that way. Personally, it's never been successful for me just because mentally I can't really get out of my own head in that selling style. So that was one sales job I took. And then another sales job I've had was with digital marketing. And I still enjoy learning the digital marketing platform. I'm very involved with Pixelfire still, which you'll hear that name often here on IBGR. Angela Cheney, who has a show on Wednesday, is one of the partners at Pixelfire. And I've built an amazing relationship with them, and I got to do sales with them for a while. Now, when I started with the internet company, it was in smaller towns that unfortunately I did not have a network built, or I didn't really have a name in. So it was cold calling. It was going to businesses that had no idea who I was, no idea what I did, and do my best to get them to buy a product from me. And like I said, their selling style, or what they recommended, was you just keep going until they give you a yes. So I felt like I was starting from ground zero when I went into that. And that's when I really learned how important a network is. Because when I started in the digital marketing world, I had clients meeting with me within a week or so of announcing that I had started with that industry. And the reason for that was I was able to stay local here in Omaha. I'm in Omaha, Nebraska, which is kind of the middle of the United States. We're the heartland, although I think there's a couple other states that aren't so much of the heartland that claim it, but that's okay. And I had a network already built. I'd been building this network for years. And I had the visibility, the credibility that led to the profitability that allowed me to hit the ground running in a brand new industry that I had really never advertised that I was part of. So those examples is why I understand, or when I understood how important a strong network really is. But what I also learned was it takes time. It takes time to build a network. And I want to be very clear. There is a money investment that you make within these networking groups or even events. You are not buying your network. The reason that there are costs is these organizations such as BNI or different type of companies that run events often, there is a cost for them to be doing this. There is a cost for them to be growing that business so that you have the support to continue using that networking opportunity. So don't think that you're paying your dues to get the referrals. That is not how it works. You're paying the dues as an opportunity to be part of the culture, part of the strategy that this specific group that you chose to join follows. Think about that. So it does take time and it takes commitment. And that's where I want you to realize you're not just paying for the referrals. You need to put in what you want to get out of it. Gosh, I love and hate that saying. I know I have so many sayings that I love and hate, but you really do need to invest more than just that monetary. You need to invest your time. You need to make the commitment. And I'm really going to dig into that VCP, the visibility, credibility, profitability that I talked about, because that really is what is going to help you be successful in these networking environments. I could probably do this whole show just sharing stories of amazing things I have seen at networking events as far as results go and stories, and then some of the crazy things that I have seen in networking events. Because remember, you're bringing diverse people in different industries together in the same room for probably a minimum hour a week, if not less. Things are gonna happen, and I've seen relationships blow up live. But I'm not just gonna tell you those stories. Maybe we'll save that for another season if I have that opportunity to just have an episode where I share stories. But what we're gonna dig into today is that VCP, the difference between groups and events, so you can kind of gauge what you think's gonna fit better in your world, because we're all a little different and we're all at different stages in our business, and I hope to give you enough information that you can decipher what's gonna fit best for you. I'm gonna reiterate multiple times the time investment that goes into it. And then we're gonna talk about contact spheres and power teams. And those are very much BNI terminology, but I'll define them so maybe you can translate that into the network you're in or who you deal with locally. So it makes a little more sense. It kind of goes with a better flow. But how I've learned those concepts and how I've seen them effective and work is in a BNI setting. And if you're not familiar with that is, look up BNI. It's US here, BNI.com. So that's where we're going to have those terminologies. I'll define them for you, and hopefully that's going to allow you to translate those within what you're doing. But I think it's important to define those because that gives you better success within the group that you are part of. And then, of course, I've got a couple ideas that I want to throw out and just things that I know I've done in the networking setting that has shown success and seen people not do them, and they don't have the success that they want. All right, we are going to take our first break. The first segment always just flies. Well, every segment flies by because I'm so excited to be here. And when we come back, we're going to dig into the power teams and the contact spheres. So everybody on Facebook Live, I think this is Donna. So if you're rewatching this though, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for your time today. These breaks in between, I just kind of reorganize my stuff and wait for the countdown. You want to see one? That's one of my lip exercises. I'm almost tempted. Maybe I should share some stories. Maybe on next break, I'll share a story of a networking event that I've experienced. I want them to be positive, of course, but just some of the crazy things I've seen are always interesting. So I'll share a story of a hairdresser that joined a BNI chapter at the next break, and it is a great example of thinking you're buying your referrals versus building your credibility to earn those referrals. So a little extra here on Facebook Live for you if you're listening to it this way and not listening to the show. So Donna just shared to start a new exercise program, lip exercises. What is it? 10-minute abs. We'll do 10-second lips. And Donna's a musician. That's I'm a tuba player, for those of you that don't know, and that's exercises that you do. You warm up your lips and you cool down your lips whenever you play. I learned that in drum corps, so that's where I learned that. Probably wouldn't sound very good on the microphone to be doing those, by all means. But yeah, Donna, let's start 10 second lips. We'll call it that. We'll market that and make millions for all those presenters out there. All right, we're going to go into the second segment coming up here, and we're going to talk about context versus power teams. I'm probably going to dig a little bit into the groups and events, but that might bleed over into the third segment. And then VCP, one of my favorite things to talk about. So definitely stick around for the third segment as we dig into that, because that's going to benefit you, not just at business, but hopefully in life. All right, we got a couple seconds. We'll jump on here in a minute. You are listening to Brandon Souba, your ADHD DJ, coming to you live from Soubaville Studios. It is a beautiful Thursday here in Omaha, Nebraska, but it's supposed to start snowing after today. So we are going to dig into winter finally. But the last 3 days have been like 60 degrees, and here in the Midwest, 60 degrees is short weather with no coat needed. As long as you can be in the sun, it gets a little cool in the shade there. But I am excited to be here today. We are talking about one of my favorite topics, that is networking. And since I just talked about, getting deep into December, it is very much the holiday season for us in America here. We had our Thanksgiving, and it looked a little different in 2020 with the COVID Thanksgiving. But I have news for you. We have a little gift waiting for you in the IBGR community. You can come and join the community and get access to the complete 6-volume set of Business Growth Strategy ebook series. But ebooks are only as useful as the understanding of the reader. Become a member of our community, and you also get access to the ebook authors, successful business owners, and IBGR on-air talent who are waiting to help you grow your business. Let's get the conversation started in IBGR community. And that is just an additional piece that we bring to you here from IBGR. We're very strong in the social realm. We're very strong, of course, in the live radio realm. So that's where we want you to come be part of the IBGR family, not just listening. Although, hey, any minute you give me listening to this show, I appreciate. And I want you to know I'm so grateful. Part of my excitement is having this show put on every week for you. And I think since I've started, I've only had one that was a replay. And it was because of the holiday. And I think I'm going to be able to go live for the rest of the holidays because they're the day before. So we'll see how that goes. All right. Context spheres versus power teams. Now, like I said, these are very heavy BNI terms. There's trainings on this, and it's utilizing the members within your chapter. So let me define them a little so you can translate that into the networks you're in. So your context sphere are the people that you're naturally going to work with. Now, I used this example before I was in the industry. Heck, maybe that's why I am in the industry. But when you think about in a networking group or a networking setting, doesn't necessarily have to be a group, you have a mortgage lender, a real estate agent, an inspector, a countertop salesman, or maybe just an overall remodeler. This is a context sphere. Because naturally, if a referral comes in of somebody buying or selling a home, in theory, everybody that I just listed could help them at some point in the process. Now, don't just assume that the people in your context sphere are going to refer you, because what happens when you assume? Spell it out, and most of us probably get that. So you can't assume that they're just going to do business with you just because you're in the same industry. That's why we're going to talk about VCP later in the show, but we'll come back to that. And then the next one is a power team. Now, power teams, I can't give you a list for because it's not so much the professions working together as it is the professionals working together. Because everybody in their own business might target a different audience. So if I find I wrote an example here, the financial planner and the tailor, I'll share that story because that's kind of a cool general one. But let's say that I find a car repair business. and they're in a group with me and I talk to them and they find that they deal a lot with repairing cars for 16, 17-year-olds. Well, these are people that obviously have connections to families. Maybe they're still growing, or maybe they've outgrown their current home. So if we somehow develop a way to have a conversation or teach that person to have a conversation with their clients, and he starts bringing up the opportunity to grow your home size or something on those lines, even though you're there to repair the car, that's where a power team can happen. It takes a lot of communication. It takes a lot of time and effort to make these power teams effective, and they're a little off the wall. You couldn't just write down a list and say, great, these are the people that I'm going to have in my power team, because chances are not everybody in that industry is going to fit into what you're trying to do or even be in front of the referrals that you're looking for. So contact spheres, people you can naturally work with. Doesn't have to be in BNI. It can be in any organization. And maybe you're in an organization that is strictly focused on your industry. Well, you're surrounded by contact spheres at that point. Then the power teams. The power team can be, that can be created outside of any type of networking group, right? So I guess I have my list here. I got a little ahead of myself. So contact spheres, people that you can naturally work with. I gave that example of the real estate program. So one trick you can do is in your industry, take 20, 30 minutes one day and brainstorm who would be in your contact sphere. Now, if you're currently in a networking group, maybe these are people that you can invite or ask others to invite. Because I'm going to talk about the importance of growing the groups that you're investing your time in. It benefits everybody. But if you brainstorm that, you can present to your group chapter, call it what it is, that you're looking to bring these professions in. If you know somebody that fits in this profession, please bring them as a visitor. Well, now what's happened is you've given an idea of a visitor for other people in the group. Maybe their best friend falls under that profession you're looking for, and they never thought to invite him because they didn't think BNI fit, or I shouldn't just say BNI, but this networking group didn't fit within their profession. Made that assumption again. Don't make assumptions. These are people who need your service or they're in front of your client. Now remember, we're talking about contact spheres. It's not naturally that they're going to work with you, but they are in front of the people that you need to be in front of. Power teams can be creative and kind of off the wall, but those, you have to discover those. So when you're talking about contact spheres, not everybody in the group is going to fit in your contact sphere, and that's okay. Maybe you might find a way to do business or refer business with the people outside of the contact sphere. But when we talk about meetings and setting up the meeting before the meeting and doing one-to-ones, focus on your contact sphere. We'll go with the 80-20 rule. Put 80% of your time and effort within your contact sphere, 20% outside of your contact sphere. These are people that are willing to open up their book of business to you or vice versa. Once again, if I don't trust you, I'm not going to send people to you. If you don't trust me, you're not going to send people to me. That's why I reiterate, just because you paid for a membership or you've been a long-term member of a group doesn't mean that you have that credibility with other people in the group. And I'm going to dig into that in the next segment because that's how important it is. We're going to spend most of the segment on that credibility, I bet. And they're people who will refer to you and you can refer to them. Now, once again, if you're in a contact sphere, they're in front of your clients. They don't have to go out of their way to find these referrals for you. Probably the most common example I can give since I've been in the mortgage world is title companies. Title companies here, and it kind of varies, I've learned, as I've done a couple deals outside of Nebraska, but here in Nebraska, you sign all your papers at a title company, and they do the title search. Well, there's a guy that joined the networking world probably about 3 or 4 years ago. Quietest guy I'd ever met. He's really cool. His name's Al, which I just think adds to the situation. Really cool guy. He makes cigar box guitars is one of his side hobbies. But he runs a very successful title company here in Omaha. I have heard his presentations. I've seen his office. I've even done a one-to-one, I've done one-to-ones with him. but that was after I was in the industry. But prior to being in the mortgage industry, I did one-to-one with a title company. And I'll be honest, I wasn't interested in what they were talking about. I was a countertop salesman at the time, right? So I don't really need to worry about title. Now that I fit into the contact sphere with title companies, it changed my outlook crazy. And for almost every customer I work with, I have the opportunity to ask them, and I guess this is more refinance than purchase, but I have the opportunity to ask them, do you have a title company that you're going to work with? Average consumer, absolutely not. So that's a very easy referral for me. Now, I have spent time with Al, he's the title company guy. I've spent time with Al getting to know him a little more personally so we know how we can work together better. But it was an easy referral because he had built credibility with me over the years of just being at networking events. So that's why I do not dog on networking events. So that's contact spheres in a nutshell. Make a list of who is in your contact sphere. Use that as an opportunity to ask other members of your networking group, if you're in one, to do some inviting. And if you're not in a group, this is now a list of people that you can prospect. And you're not going in to sell them something. You're going in to build a relationship with them, to build a team with them. And I talk about that a lot, that you're either looking for business or you're looking for a relationship. And a lot of the times it's the relationships that will lead you to more business, doing a little less work, doing more fun work, meeting one-to-one, grabbing a drink every now and then, that kind of stuff. That leads to business. Now with your power teams, like I said, this can be off the wall. So the financial planner and the tailor. Tailors, if you use one, it's awesome. I don't get to spend a lot of time with the person I go for my suits. They're pretty quick, which is good. But a tailor sees somebody in suits consistently. Generally, if you wear a suit, that can translate to you're in a position where you might make money. You might be a little more wealthy. It doesn't guarantee it, but it is kind of a good driver. Well, if you as a financial planner can make a good relationship with a tailor, teach that person how to have the conversations that can lead to introducing you. It's a crazy thought, may not have benefits right away, but if they create the relationship where it's mutual, you're sending people to this tailor to get the suits, they're having the conversation to get them back to you or getting new people to look at their finances. It could work. It could work. So maybe while you're working on your contact spheres, you spend a little extra time focusing on some of that off-the-wall idea, or maybe you've received a referral from somebody that was off the wall and you didn't think you would ever get a referral from them. So contact spheres versus power teams. Put a lot of effort into contact spheres. Don't put crazy effort into power teams until you know the relationship will be beneficial. We're going to take another break, and when we come back, we're finally going to dig in to the VCP process and groups versus events. Okay, so I was at a meeting, and it was a networking meeting, and this hairdresser had been part of this group for, let's say, 6 or 7 months, not even a full year. And there happened to be a hairdresser prior that was in this group. Well, and this I learned from other members of the group. I did not see this because I had only visited this group once. It wasn't in Omaha. And she really was in her pajamas. It was a morning meeting, I get it. But she was in her pajamas. She sat at her seat from the second the meeting started. She really didn't interact. She wasn't networking. And I thought, well, maybe it's just, today. Everybody has their bad days. But other members had told me that was pretty consistent on how she acted. So they were going around the room to do their explanation of their business. And she stands up and she just starts yelling at everybody. I know you're still using the other hairdresser that was in here, and I haven't made any money. I can't recoup the money I invested to be part of this group. Why'd you even invite me to be here? And all these things. She unfortunately started crying. She was very emotional. I mean, I get it. This is supposed to be an area that's giving you business, and she wasn't getting it. And so she stormed out of there. Now, luckily, a very influential member knew her and went out and chatted with her in the parking lot. She did not come back. She did leave. She drove out that day. She did come back the next week and apologize, kind of explain the situation. But to me, and I feel for her, But what I saw was somebody that thought they could just pay their dues and get business. She wasn't doing all the extra things that we're going to talk about in this next segment to build that credibility to entice people to come and get their haircut with her. And that's when I really learned how important the VCP process is, because it's all about building your credibility within these groups. It's not just paying for referrals. So we are going to be digging back in here. We've got about 30 seconds before I come back from break. Hope you enjoyed that little story, and we're going to jump back live here in just a minute. Hey, this is Brandon Souba coming to you live from Soubaville Studios. I'm your ADHD DJ. That's right, I have ADHD, and I'm sure you can tell that with the excitement in my voice. If you're watching us on Facebook Live on the IBGR Facebook page now, you'll see my hands move a lot more than what you probably think when I'm talking about these topics. Today's topic is one of my favorite. It is building your business and building your network. I've been involved in the networking industry for the last 7 years. I'm never really out of it because I always find groups that I get to be part of, and I'm always finding relationships and inviting opportunities. Which, by the way, if you've ever been invited to a networking group or a networking event and you didn't say yes, next time you have that opportunity, I want you to say yes, because I think a lot of us that were strong in the networking world have been held back a little with the whole COVID episode. And those of us that put it off, maybe you might be regretting that you didn't go check those out when you had the opportunity. So if you get invited, just say yes. And we're going to talk a little bit about inviting today. All right, well, I've been talking about VCP. I really should go over group versus events first, but I am going to jump into the VCP because I'm too darn excited about it. So VCP, visibility, credibility, and profitability. Now, once again, I learned this in BNI. If you're in BNI, you've probably heard this terminology. If you're not in BNI, maybe you've heard of it just in your other groups, just from general education. There are plenty of podcasts out there in the BNI realm, now I'm going to guess outside of the BNI realm, that talks about this. And I learned it early days when I was a member selling countertops, but I never understood the importance of it until I moved over to more of a director role in the BNI realm. And it's really not just in business that this matters. It's very much overall in life. Think about it. And this, you can translate this to networking events, but think about it. You make a new friend, okay? You probably saw them somewhere, or maybe you went to an event and you met them that way. But your first impression, for the most part, when making new friends is visible meetings. So you make a new friend, visibly you know who they are. Now, if you're at an event together, or you get to talk a little, or maybe you even set up a one-to-one meeting because you hit it off, your personalities are just jiving, or you fit into that contact sphere situation, so you set up a one-to-one. You go in there, I always try to go with the mindset of be more interested than interesting, so I try to generally come up with 4 to 5 questions that I'm prepared to ask them. If you want to dig more into that, check out my episode, The Meeting Before the Meeting. I dig into more on building those questions so that you can be more interested than interesting. Because when you ask the right questions, you learn the right answers that allow you to help grow each other's businesses. See what I did there? So that's where you build your credibility. Now, this is still just a friendship. I guess I kind of twisted it to business a little. And then, of course, if you build that credibility, bada boom, bada bing, turns into that profitability. You're doing business together. So that's more on the friendship realm, but I use it within family. I traveled quite a bit. Now I have a lot more visibility with my family. Ironically, I have to work a little bit harder on that credibility with the wife. I'm around a little bit more. She has to deal with this energy a little bit more. And she's not a morning person, and I very much am. And especially now that we have our puppy Minnie, my days usually start around 4:30 in the morning because that's when she is ready to go out. So I have a lot of excitement. It's very easy for me to build credibility. You're using VCP in your family and your friends. Let's talk about it in the business world. So visibility. Some of the organizations do have an attendance policy. And my theory is, if you have a problem with the attendance policy, you're not in the right type of networking opportunity. Because if you're not willing to make the commitment to build your visibility on a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly basis, whatever you've committed to, you're not going to go to the next step of credibility because you're not even there. And unfortunately, there's some industries that they just get fed a lot of referrals. They don't even need to show up to the groups. They just put their name on the roster and boom, they're getting business. Okay, if you're in that situation, just think how much more business you would be getting if you were more visible. Now, this is for those that are not visible or not kind of living up to their commitments that they've invested in. This is not for those that I'm preaching to the choir. If I'm preaching to the choir, then let's focus more on the credibility. You have some opportunity there, I'm sure. But if you're not even building the visibility, you're not going to get the maxed out results that you want or that you need. Maybe you need these results to recoup your investment in the first place. So visibility in life, be there, be present. One of the things that I've worked on a lot since I have kind of stopped traveling more or less for business is I turn the TV off when I'm playing with the kids, or I'll pause football and go into the other room and play with the kids. Now, we all need our own time. You need to unwind however that may be. But in this case scenario, I really make it a point to ask myself, do you need to unwind or should you go spend time with kids? Because one of the reasons I wanted to reduce my chapel was to spend more time with my family. All right, so visibility overall. Go to your events. Be visible at events. Be visible in meetings you commit to. So then we go into credibility. Now, credibility, this is where people know who you are. They know what you do, but they know how good you are at it. I'm going to give you an analogy. I want you to think of credibility as a tightrope. If you get up there to walk on a tightrope, one, it's slow. You can't run across a tightrope and not fall off. It's just not how it works. So you start off real slow. You get out as far as you can. But if at any point you fall off the tightrope, what do you have to do? Well, you can either struggle a lot, and maybe your relationship or your muscles, since we're using the tightrope, is strong enough to get you back to where you left off. Good on you. But chances are that's not the case, to where you have to go all the way back to the beginning and start over. So when you think about credibility, there are so many things that can hurt your credibility that you may not even be aware of. First one, not returning phone calls or an email. Some people may not use you because they have somebody in your industry that is spot on returning phone calls and emails, text messages, whatever communication you use, and you fell short and they lost a deal. Your credibility is gone. You're right back to visibility. They know who you are and they know what you do, but maybe they're not using your business. Okay, so that's one part. Being late to events, being late to everything. I think that really does affect your credibility, because I firmly believe how you treat the events that you've committed to, your referral partners, if you will, is how you're going to treat your clients. And I've been challenged on that many times, and it seems every time I'm challenged, I can show them without even pointing them out that they're consistently not going to show up on time. So that can hurt your credibility. I did a podcast on swearing one time, and I went back and forth on it, right? Swearing in a public setting. I ironically can get through this whole podcast, or this, not podcast, it will be if you're listening to it, but this whole radio show, I generally don't swear. And I have a lot of words that I use in place of swear words, so I'm still using it. But that does not mean I don't swear. Ironically, in the evenings lately, my wife pointed out, I've been swearing a lot lately. And I don't know what that is. Maybe holiday stress or just dealing with 2020. I don't know what it is, but okay, so I swear a lot. But the reason that I'm so cautious of it in a public setting and what I learned from the research I did for that podcast is you never know who is in your audience. Is it worth losing a follower, a potential partner, a potential sale, just so you can be you and use that swear word? Because, Gary Vaynerchuk, I feel he's calmed down quite a bit the last few years. But when I first started listening to him years and years ago, he swore a ton. That's who he was. That was part of his brand. It was harder for me to recommend him to other professionals because of that. I didn't know how they would feel about it. So that's where these are things that can hurt your credibility. So if you're great at visibility, really dig in and look from the outside in at how you're doing on your credibility. Do mistakes happen? Absolutely. And I've heard some great education pieces. To tell you the truth, I think I've done one. You're going to make mistakes, but it depends on how you recover from those mistakes, on if people will continue to use your services or not. And then the last piece in the VCP is the profitability. And I'll give a little insight here. I used to start with, and the last piece is the P. And I started getting some chuckles in some public settings, so I no longer just use the acronym. I do say the profitability is the last piece. Now the thing about this is, it is different for everybody. I'm going to use sales as the first example. Profitability for sales is closing a deal and maybe receiving the commission off of it, right? That's, I feel, where most of our mindsets go. But maybe you're in a setting where you're looking for donations. If you have strong visibility and strong credibility within your network and you ask for a donation, you're going to have a lot of people that want to support something you believe in. So your profitability there wasn't money for you, but it was money for an organization or a donation that you're working on. So for those of you in the nonprofit world, VCP is very important, and it never ends. Never ends. Use of product or service. So once again, usually if someone's using your product or service, you're making money off of it. But maybe earlier startup stages where we are and what we focus on here in this segment or in this time, maybe that's that profitability of just getting a couple influential people to use your product or service and talk good about it. Ultimately, you'll make money off of that, but probably not right away. But that's a profitable path you're going down. And the last one is connections. For me, a lot of when I was involved in the networking world was just connections that I wanted. Not the member that's going to join today, although that never hurts, but a connection to somebody I can carry on a conversation with or even educate on that they are going to then provide people that want to be part of these groups. Versus just trying to go out and get them myself. So my profitability when I was heavily in the networking world were connections. So visibility, do what you're doing. If you commit to something, do it well. Credibility, always be looking outside in, hold yourself accountable and see where your credibility lays with everybody around you. And then the last piece is that profitability. And what does that look like for you? We're going to take our last break. I can't believe we're already to the last segment. When we get back, we'll round it out. Oh, Facebook world. How's everything going out there? Having a good time? Hope you're enjoying your time with me today. What was the... Oh, it's over here. Let's see. Another example that I did not get a chance to say on the show, though, of power teams is hairdressers and fill in the blank. Hairdressers are great people to build a relationship with. Of course, your personal hairdresser should be your main focus because you're already transactional with them. But there are some that maybe deal with very high-end clients or people that just are very well business savvy, right? So hairdressers, and there's a lot of them out there, a lot of successful ones, and you got to find the successful ones because those customers are very committed to them. If they're not good in their trade, just as any trade, they don't usually stay around long. But they're kind of a unique one that if you build a good relationship with, they're constantly talking to different people about different things. And they spend 3 to 4 hours with some of their clients on a monthly basis. Just saying, if that person mentions anything about your product or service you need, boom, that is a good connection for you. So I have been able to meet a lot of different hairdressers, and I don't know if that's the politically correct term for it. For those of you in the industry, I respect your industry more than maybe the respect I'm giving it right now. But with those, and they're generally fun people too, like just fun people to get to know and be around. The only challenge is their time is 100% their money. If they're not working as somebody in their chair, they're not making money. So it can be difficult to find those times to connect, but anything can be done if the profits are exchanging back and forth. So there's your extra little bonus tip on the break on Facebook Live. I'm taking the live. I think it's kind of fun. And as you can see, I use very exciting paint schemes here in Soubaville Studios. it's pretty dope. All right, about 30 more seconds. We'll be live again. You know what you can do with those 30 seconds? Go and download the app if you haven't already. IBGR on all platforms. All right, well, as most of you know, this is not the most exciting part of my Thursday. I just know that the last segment is the end towards the end. No, the end towards the end, that doesn't make any sense. It's the trail towards the end of the show. And I love the hour that we get to spend together on these Thursdays. For most of us, it's still Thursday. For some of us around the world, it may not be. You may be a little ahead of the game. But if you're looking for more one-to-one help to grow your business, check out our business directory of vetted professionals in all 4 of our market segments. You can go to ibgr.network, click on the Home tab, click on the Us tab, then choose your marketing segment. Reach out using the contact information or join the IBGR community and join one of our mentoring groups. So even though we're kind of on the end of our time today, you can stay with us within the community and you can keep getting that one-to-one help with all the family here at IBGR, which is just chock full of professionals, entrepreneurs, and so much knowledge. We should write a book about it. Oh, wait. We did write a book about it. I talked about that as a free gift early on. All right, so let's dig into the final segment here. We're going to talk about groups versus events, and then we'll talk a little bit about inviting. Then I got a couple things to close out today. So group versus events. You want to know what I personally like better? Groups. And the reason I like groups is because the VCP process, you can control it so much better in a group setting that you're committed to weekly. I think most groups should meet weekly. It's just consistency is key, but even if it's bi-weekly, that's not bad. Once a month, the problem with once a month is if you can't make the one meeting, you're out for that month. Right? But if every week, if you can't make one here and there, you still want to be represented. So you want to send somebody in your place, but you get more opportunity. So I love networking groups, and go figure, I was involved with them for so long. That's not a shock. Events to me, it's just hard to control the VCP process consistently. And you're dealing with a lot of your competition can be in the room. So let's go side by side. I know I did a side by side last week, so let's go side by side here. So first off, groups, they're more consistent. I talked about that time just a second ago. They're more consistent. Most groups I see, they do meet weekly or bi-weekly. Every group that I'm involved in personally, they meet weekly, and I look forward to those weekly events. The weekly groups. Events are going to be a lot more random. Now, there are some events that schedule maybe the first Tuesday of every month or something like that, which gives you an opportunity to be more consistent. But as I said, when it's a monthly thing, you may not have the audience that you're always looking for. You may go to one event one month and gosh, everybody in your contact sphere is there. You have so much opportunity. And then you go to the same event the next month and it just didn't seem beneficial to you at all. Now, every event or group takes time. So you can't just say, oh, I had one bad event, I'm not going to go to those anymore. No, that's not what I'm getting at. What I'm saying is, if you want to set goals and be consistent, you're gonna have better success in the networking groups versus the event setting. Talked about the exclusion. So groups, a lot of them are going to where once you join somebody else in your profession cannot be part of the group. Now that said, I was in a group that was not industry specific, met weekly, and this was in the digital marketing realm, and there was another digital marketer in there. Him and I got together at least once a month just to see what he was focusing on, what I was focusing on, and there were times that we would pass business back and forth to each other because maybe it just wasn't a good time for me to help this client or he was better at it. And we were able to have that open conversation of who would be the best person for the situation. Events, they're non-industry specific. Chances are you're gonna see somebody in your competition consistently at events. And that's okay, because if you're visible and you have a strong credibility with people in the room, they'll still do business with you. You still have that opportunity. But those random people that are there that you don't have the credibility with, well, maybe you don't even have visibility with, that's where, once again, your time is money. So are you committing your time to the right type of events that are going to get you the results that you're looking for? Groups focus on referrals, where events, a lot of the time, you're going to get tips or leads. The reason, honestly, the difference is accountability. In a group, you have the opportunity, and education. I'll say accountability and education. In a group, you generally have the opportunity to educate the people more consistently so that they understand what you do, what you focus on, and how well you do it. On the other side, in the events, it is a random conversation you're having with somebody and they pull the, oh, you need to talk to so-and-so, or oh, I know somebody that needs your services. Well, just because of the environment, that is more likely to be a tip or a lead. And I have seen more after events not hearing from the person that said they would connect you versus in groups. If you don't hear from them, generally they're going to see you the next week, right? If you're meeting weekly, and that gives them that friendly reminder, oh, I do need to connect you with this person. And when we talk about the accountability in a group setting, in a networking group, it's very easy to hold that person accountable. You have a relationship with this person. Maybe you have sent them business, so you're just asking for the accountability piece. We're in a networking group. If this is somebody you just met, you're trying to build good credibility, maybe your first move out after the meeting and calling them and saying, hey, it's been 3 weeks and you never connected me with that person, maybe not the right move. Maybe it is you reach out to them and you say, hey, I would love to get coffee with you sometime, learn more about your business. You're putting yourself back in front of them, so hopefully that sparks the opportunity that they offered, but you're not holding them accountable because really you don't have the opportunity to hold them accountable if they're just a random person that you met. Within the groups, I love B&I. I love B&I, so it's hard for me to go beyond that. But within the groups, there is an investment. And generally a group is going to be a higher investment. Well, make sure that you're utilizing not the investment that you made, but the time you're putting into it. Do not pay for a membership if you can't commit to their expectations, because disappointment is directly correlated with expectations. And if you can't fit in the expectations of what the group has asked you to do, you're going to disappoint them. And in some situations, they're going to ask you to leave, and you probably won't get your investment back, and you definitely won't get your time back. So if you're going to have a larger investment, make sure you can commit to that so you're not throwing money down the drain. Now, on the events, these should be lower investments, maybe $5, $10, $15, $20. If there's a speaker, it might be a little bit more. Those are all very feasible, reasonable investments that you should plan to make for your business. So with events, the lower the investment, maybe it's a shorter time commitment, right? This is the one, oh, I love that speaker. I'm going to go check him out. It's $20 for a ticket. Fantastic. And you have a great time and you meet a couple people. Great. That's the point of events. Plus, visibility, the first step before credibility. You're always building visibility whenever you go to an event because people see you. They see your brand and they see you representing your business. As far as groups on the time, you have generally before business, so the earlier hours, that's 7 a.m., 7:30. Omaha's kind of unique. We have a lot of 8, 9 o'clocks. Don't want to rush you out too soon in the morning. Or they're going to be during business hours. So maybe a lunch, maybe a 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock. And one saying I always liked is it should be part of your business, not in addition to, when you're in a networking group, because the people that you're meeting with, the people you're working with, when you go to your meeting, that's all part of building your business. It's positive activity that you're doing. So generally, you are going to see the groups meet during business hours. Now, the events, those are all over the board, all over the board. You have happy hours, you have coffee and contacts, you've got afternoon stuff. You might even have Saturday and Sunday stuff, which with the groups, if you do something separate, great. I'm not saying you can't do it during those times, but when you ask for a weekly commitment, it's a lot easier for business professionals to give that weekly commitment when it's within their business time. I'm very passionate about having time with family because when I traveled, I didn't get that time. And I talked about that a little at the top of the hour. So maybe find that life balance. And I know Donna talks about that on the show right before mine, but maybe find a little bit of that life balance and give a little more back to your family or back to your business. Find where you need to maybe put a little more focus. But when it comes to events, generally those are when they work for your time. So groups versus events, they're both very valuable and important to your business. If you're just looking to get some more visibility, events are a great opportunity. If you're really ready to dig in, find some strategic partners and find some committed members for a contact sphere, those groups, the memberships are definitely a great opportunity for you. Check them all out. If you've never gone to either, get out there. Well, and within COVID guidelines, right? Be safe, but get out there and get some opportunities for you. I've talked about this a lot, so I'm just gonna touch on it real quick as we're closing out the show. If you get involved in anything, groups, events, whatever it is, organizations, always be inviting. Always be talking about that. Because one great way to grow your credibility, I guess I talked about credibility killers, but one great way to grow your credibility is bring others business, bring others opportunity, bring others the connections that they're looking for, and you can always do that by inviting. It is one thing to pass a referral, it is another thing to bring a human being to a referral opportunity. It gives the person you're sending that referral to a better chance to get that conversation going. So to close out, I have like minimal notes on this written, and I still could keep going probably for another 30 minutes today. But here's what I want to close with. You need to be active, be it for events or within your group or at groups, you need to be active. You need to be consistent. There's no better way to build your visibility than consistently showing up, and that's going to bleed into building your credibility with others. You need to be inviting so that you're always helping the organizations that you're part of grow, and you're showing your commitment. Because it's one thing to show up to every meeting, it's another thing to show up to every meeting and bring a visitor every now and then. Then the last piece is give without expectations. Once you get to the power team world or the relationships that are on those levels, it's okay to ask. But if you're not there, give without expectations. Oh my gosh, this was a great show. I love you all so much. Have a fantastic week. Join me live next week, and we'll touch base then. Hey, Facebook Live, thank you so much for your time today. I hope you enjoyed kind of the behind the scenes here at Soubaville Studios. I don't see why we can't keep doing these live going forward. So thank you everybody on the IBGR family, and talk to you next week. Check out our podcast, check out the app. Thank you for your support.